Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, the wise guy, and today is January 28, 2025. News that Donald Trump is still trying to misuse his executive powers is dropped, and it is making a lot of people anxious or outright fearful, and I am not entirely sure it's warranted at the moment. But we should cover all of these insane attempts because, as one of my friends mentioned to me earlier today, this could very well be groundwork of something more insidious. So if you dig news, history, and humorous American hogwash, make sure to drop a blue heart in that comment section for me. Sit a spell. Take your shoes off. In today's round of fuck about and find out, MAGA supporters are waking up to the news that many government spending programs have been placed on hold for the moment by a singular executive authority, Donald Trump. I'm sure many of you have noticed how those in your life who would normally start screeching the minute a Democrat farted too loudly that they were engaged in some sort of executive or overreach, and they have nothing to say about this in particular, along with other sweeping executive proposals that Trump has pushed out. Let's find out exactly what it is that Trump signed. Yesterday, the executive order issued by Donald Trump mandates a freeze on federal financial assistance programs effective this afternoon. The Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, outlined the directive in a memo. Initially, it was sold as something that would just place pauses on federal grants and loans. And what they don't wish to address, however, is what this will affect on the day-to-day for Americans. The specific targets of the financial freeze are associated with DEI programs as well as those associated with the Inflation Reduction Act, which is yet another promise made and another promise broken, as Trump has claimed he would actually tackle inflation and get prices for Americans down. He also went after the primary project by Biden that would have benefited every American as it cuts through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So while crying about his wall having not been built, Trump is also gutting other accomplishments by presidents in exactly the same fashion while hurting more Americans. And what this means is bridges, roads, all of the infrastructure projects addressing crumbling highways, overpasses, and rail lines are going to be cut. And I'm assuming many people will be on hold for either pay or a job if they aren't completely laid off in every state across the country. This order does, however, exempt Social Security, Medicare, and student loans, but there was a major uncertainty when it comes to benefits such as SNAP or supplemental assistance for needy families. The confusion is due to the fact that there was no SNAP having been mentioned in the memorandum by the OMB. But that doesn't mean that the concerns are unfounded, as they have been targets of conservative ire for decades. Critics to these orders are saying that these freezes could very well disrupt essential services like healthcare, nutrition assistance, and housing for millions of Americans. Trump is justifying this by stating that it is necessary for his policy agenda. But the issue is that many more Americans should be focused on the executive overreach problem. I fully understand the anxiety out there, and I want to try and calm everyone's tits a little bit on this, because although these are very much sweeping and broad strokes, these orders will undoubtedly be challenged in the court system, because for those who need a quick recap on civics, there are three separate but co-equal branches of government. Each has their own power and authority, and the authority to spend money is within the Congress, not the White House. But if you need ammo against your constitutionalist uncle, this is it. For years and decades, Republicans have tried to frame their opponents as enemies to the government, and when they finally have someone doing it, they're far too busy to discuss it. The problems we are seeing primarily with these individuals is that they claim Donald Trump was just full of bluster on the campaign trail, and that he would just never try and accomplish the goals that he claims to have set out. Spoiler alert, guys. He is most certainly trying his best to get at everything you said that he wouldn't. Project 2025 has been silently implemented, and raids removing our community members and sending them away are all taking place. Y'all told us to fear dictators while gleefully installing an authoritarian who has police openly asking people for their papers. If you're unfamiliar with why that should freak you out, the Nazis had a secret state police force called the Gestapo. This group of folks was infamous for enforcing strict monitoring and controls of populations. They would stop individuals and demand to see their paperwork, which was often identification, permits, or identifying documentation that would verify their freedoms and betrayed their political affiliations. We are currently at a point where our government is using ICE as a Gestapo as it combs through our lands for people that it doesn't deem American enough. It's detaining these people and taking them away from both family and friends, sometimes in the dark of night. But because it isn't happening to them, it appears as though our more conservative colleagues would rather pretend it isn't happening at all. And for those still stuck having those Facebook arguments, allow me to read from a gentleman by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre in 1946 called The Anti-Semite and Jew. Quote, never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge. But they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for, by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. So don't waste your time, nor your blood pressure on those who fail to see the evidence laid bare before their eyes. It's not your responsibility to think for them. There comes a time in all of our lives where we must learn to accept that, if I may quote a great friend, an incredible Marine, speaking on the words of his drill instructor, there are two types of people in this world: those who can learn from other people's mistakes, and people that don't learn until they feel pain. There are armies of Americans who unfortunately haven't yet felt the pain of their own mistakes, and will not learn from them until they do. The only advice I can give to y'all is live within your means for a little bit and prepare as best y'all can. I have a feeling that in due time we will be finding many new and unanticipated allies. I suggest you open yourselves and taking in all who wish to atone and join into the resistance. It will be masses in the streets that turn this around, but it must be peaceful. We cannot give this son of a bitch any reason to try and use the Insurrection Act unless we truly wish to see a police state with martial law. He won't think twice. Trust me. So until next time, y'all come back now. You hear?